it all, and the man is gigantic for 205. He would probably walk around 240 pounds. He could put a bit of muscle on, walk around at 250 and go knock the fuck out of almost everyone at light heavyweight if they can't take him down, right? And what would Cyril Gane do? Cyril Gane would stand there and go toe to toe. The man's a kickboxer. Send him to Dagestan for 20 or 30 years and forget all about it. He still ain't going to shoot a takedown. And you're going to be jumping around all over the place. Pa, 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 pa. But you know, he's very light on the feet, you know, and he's very French, and he's got the flair, and he's got the ballet, and he's got the pa, 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 pa. He's got the punch you in the face. I don't know what I'm doing, okay? I've lost the plot. I've been sitting here by myself in this room, losing my goddamn mind, because Alex Pereira is going to fight for a third belt. The only person to ever do it. That will mean he is, by far, the most successful person to ever step foot in the UFC's hallowed octagon. What do you think? Am I crazy?
I feel confident in telling you Pereira is going to be on the White House card. I also believe it's going to be at heavyweight. That would lead you to believe it's going to be against Cyril Gane, and then we're going to get some kind of very dramatic news. Is that going to be for an undisputed title, or is that going to be for an interim title? Now,
Alex Pereira is going to fight for a third UFC belt, and if that happens, he becomes by an enormous distance the most successful and most accomplished fighter to ever step inside the octagon. A distinction so significant that no historical comparison comes close to capturing what it would actually mean for his legacy in the sport. The confidence level among people with genuine organizational connections is sitting at near certainty that Pereira will be on the White House card at heavyweight, that the fight will be against Cyril Gane, and that a belt will be on the line. Which means the question being debated is not whether this fight happens, but what specific championship architecture surrounds it when it does.
so would it make a level of sense to have Pereira not have the drama of where we're going to come up with a belt? Not have the drama of, do we take this off Tom? Do we do an undisputed? Is this essentially a number one contenders match? Thus, it really brushes any coming back discussion of John Jones, right?
The political chess match the UFC now has to navigate around this fight is genuinely complicated, because if Pereira moves to heavyweight while retaining his light heavyweight title, it immediately opens a Pandora's box that forces the organization to either accept that precedent universally or explain why specific champions receive treatment that others do not. And that inconsistency breeds resentment in a locker room that is already watching the championship structure bend for the biggest names. Cyril Gane is the logical and arguably only high-profile opponent that makes immediate sense at heavyweight for the White House card, not because the options around him are unworthy, but because the pool of viable marquee names at heavyweight who are positioned, available, and suitable for the scale of this event is shallower than the casual fan understands. And Gane, despite his promotional limitations, is the ranked heavyweight who makes the matchmaking conversation clean.
Or do we have Pereira? Do we fight for a belt that already exists, his, and we put it against a guy that's going to promote the holy hell out of it? Oh, and by the way, would like the fight. Now that creates a little bit of a problem of, okay, what do we do at 185? But it seems to me that you have a smaller...
The Khamzat Chimaev versus Pereira light heavyweight possibility is the kind of fight that generates massive headline energy and immediate fan excitement, while simultaneously flying in the face of every established principle the UFC uses to govern championship access, because Chimaev won a belt at welterweight, never defended it, has been making noise at middleweight without fully committing, and the idea of him jumping to light heavyweight to challenge for a title he has never earned in that division while ignoring ranked contenders in 2 other weight classes sets a precedent the organization cannot sustain. The fighters grinding through the rankings in good faith, winning fights, earning positions, and waiting for their legitimate opportunity are watching these conversations in real time, and the morale consequences of a championship structure that can be circumvented by a fighter who generates enough promotional noise to jump the line regardless of divisional commitment are not abstract, they are concrete, and they ripple through every locker room in every weight class simultaneously.
I mean, the more that I think about Chimaev versus Pereira, it's very easy for me to dismiss that fight. Like, that is not the direction that anybody's going in. That's not the direction anybody's discussed. There's not really a precedence around somebody like Chimaev who won a belt, never defended it, has two meaningful contenders that are both calling him out. There's really not any precedence about taking him out of a weight class and giving him the same opportunity somewhere else, but
Chimaev made his situation significantly more complicated by publicly stating that he does not want to fight Shavkat Rakhmonov because they are both Muslim, both from Dagestan, they know each other, and while he acknowledged that if Rakhmonov wants to fight, he would give it to him, he made clear it is not a fight he is motivated by, and that statement is a problem for a fighter who needs title shot credibility, because Rakhmonov is ranked, actively calling him out, and has been building toward this fight since the beginning of winter 2025. Professional fighting at the championship level regularly requires setting aside personal connections and cultural ties to face the legitimate contender standing in your path. And a fighter who publicly expresses reluctance to engage with the most credible ranked challenger in his division based on shared background is handing the UFC a justification to delay his title shot indefinitely while giving the organizational machinery time to route the division in whatever direction generates the most revenue.
I caught an interview that sent me even more confusing. It was by Chimaev, and he talked about Imanov, and he said, I don't want to fight the guy. That isn't a guy that I want to fight. Like, I don't have a passion to go and fight this guy. He's a Muslim, I'm a Muslim, he's from Dagestan, I'm from Dagestan, I know him, he knows me. If it's the fight that he wants, I would give it to him. I don't care, but that's not a guy that I want to fight. And I want to just jump in as the referee and go, all right, timeout, Chimaev, just so you're perfectly clear, Imanov wants to fight you. This isn't like a question or a wonder. Imanov not only wants to fight you, he got rankings in line to fight you. He has called you out. The world believes that he was going to fight you, and I'm going back to the beginning of winter 2025.
Magomed Ankalaev is sitting as the clear #1 contender at light heavyweight, is unquestionably deserving of a title shot. And the honest assessment is that nobody should be sitting around making the case for him, because he needs to be making that case himself, loudly and continuously, in a media environment where silence from a deserving contender is simply an invitation for the promotion to create an interim title, move the champion to another division, and put everyone else on hold indefinitely. The modern UFC landscape rewards self-promotion as aggressively as it rewards athletic performance inside the cage, and a fighter who is content to let his ranking speak for itself while the champion is actively being discussed for a different division and a different belt is making a strategic error that the organization will not correct on his behalf out of fairness. Because fairness in championship positioning is a function of pressure applied from the contender's side, rather than goodwill dispensed from the top.
Alex Pereira is going to be able to move up to heavyweight without relinquishing the 205-pound title. Aren't we asking the exact same thing? We just say, well, can't Chimaev move up to light heavyweight without relinquishing the title? Does one guy have to relinquish? And where's Olberg in this whole thing? I don't want to give Olberg a hard time. I know people that know him. I've never met him, but he seems like a really likable guy. But where is Olberg in this whole thing? He's clearly the #1 contender at 205 pounds. I'm confident that Olberg's next fight will be for a title at 205 pounds. Is it going to be against Pereira for the title? Sure doesn't look like it. Is it going to be for an interim title? I sure hope not. Is it going to be for a title that Pereira vacates? Maybe. But either way, I shouldn't be sitting over here making this case for Olberg. Olberg should be making this case.
The simplest possible solution to the belt chaos that the Pereira heavyweight move creates is also the most unpopular one in the short term, which is that if a champion voluntarily moves up a division to chase a belt in a higher weight class, they vacate the title they currently hold, so the division they are leaving can function normally. Contenders can fight for a real championship rather than an interim placeholder, and the locker room morale damage of holding up an entire weight class is avoided entirely. The complication is that applying this standard consistently means asking Pereira to give up the light heavyweight title he earned and successfully defended, which is a real cost to a real champion who has given real performances to hold it. But the alternative of allowing champions to accumulate belts while keeping multiple divisions in limbo is a tax on every fighter in every affected weight class who has done everything right and is still waiting.
When they start collecting hardware and they start collecting trophies, I get it. And the bigger problem with it isn't for the fans. That's a lot of fun for us. The bigger problem is the locker room. If you take the morale out of the locker room, if you take an ability to fight for a championship because our championship is held up, if you take that from the locker room, it's got some massive ripple effect that you would rather not deal with. And I feel one of the ways to not deal with that is that if a guy moves up a division, he vacates. We get on with it. Seems like a reasonable solution. And I think that we're faced with that. I think that we're just about to get some news. I am strong that I am right about Pereira on the White House card. I'm strong on the idea that it's going to be at heavyweight. I'm strong on the idea it's going to be for a belt.
The overcomplication the UFC tends to create around these situations, the temporary belts, the special weight stipulations, the elaborate scenarios that solve problems which would not exist under simpler rules, is on full display in the current Pereira discussion, because the underlying reality is straightforward. Pereira has a belt, he is willing to fight anyone, he wants to move up and test himself against the heavyweights, and the promotion needs to decide whether the organizational framework bends to accommodate the star or the star operates within the framework that governs everyone else. The answer the UFC ultimately arrives at will say more about how the championship structure functions going forward than any single fight result, because the precedent established when the organization's biggest light heavyweight name moves up will become the reference point every future champion uses when they decide how much of the organizational rulebook applies to them specifically versus how much applies to fighters who have not yet reached the level where exceptions become available.
I'm confident it's going to be Surreal Gone. But if we're going to do all of those things, couldn't we do the same thing and not have to figure out how to solve problems? I mean, couldn't we just do it for an undisputed title considering Pereira's got one? It's not wholly different than the idea that John Jones and Pereira are going to fight and we're going to figure out some kind of a belt and we're going to do it at heavyweights. Well, no, they can fight and they could even main event and they could even fight for a belt, but because Pereira has one, you just got to beat the scale the day before. And it sounds like we're creating a lot of problems that we're then trying to solve. If you want Pereira, you got him. He'll fight anybody.
If the White House card delivers Pereira versus Gane for a heavyweight belt, it will be one of the most visually and commercially compelling heavyweight title fights the UFC has ever staged, because Pereira's combination of elite striking, enormous size for the weight class, and the kind of finishing power that ends conversations quickly is genuinely dangerous for any heavyweight on the current roster, regardless of how skilled or experienced that heavyweight is at managing distance and controlling the pace of a fight. Gane is a technically brilliant kickboxer with excellent footwork and a fight IQ that has carried him through elite competition at the highest level of the division. But the specific problem he has historically had with pure power and finishing ability when cornered against the cage is the exact weapon in Pereira's arsenal that makes this fight not a stylistic mismatch, but a genuine collision where the margin between a competitive performance and a first-round knockout is narrower than any pre-fight analysis can account for with confidence.
If you want Pereira to fight for a title, good news. He's got one of those too. Now you need an opponent for him. And if the only guy that's calling him out is Chimaev, I don't know that it necessarily means that's the fight that you go with. I think that it's a situation where guys like Oberg have got to wake up. I'm not going to come out and make a case for Oberg to get the belt because he stopped guys and he's handsome and people like him and the rankings say so. I'm going to make a case for Oberg once Oberg makes the case. Once Oberg says, I'm the guy, bring it on. I keep hearing you're going to go to 205 pounds. Hey, Chimaev, I hear you keep calling out Pereira. You come into this vision, you come through me. That's interesting. That's compelling, but it's not what's happening.